Rico Verhoeven against Oleksandr Usyk. And can I just say to my friends in the boxing media, Rico Verhoeven. I've heard like 900 different pronunciations of his names and of his name. And you know, a few things like crystallized for me since this news came out. I knew that this was in the works for quite some time. As I told you guys, I think I said to this audience back in November, I remember doing
a few hinties. You did?
Well, I told you first about the Derek Lewis fight, and then I told you about the Anthony Joshua fight. And once the Anthony Joshua fight wasn't on the table because obviously he's going through a lot of stuff, they tried to make it right with him. This is the God's honest truth. This is the God's honest truth. Do you remember when Francis Ngannou beat Renan Ferreira?
Yes.
And then do you remember afterwards on this little engine that could, we talked about, what did we talk about? The only fight that makes sense is Rico versus Francis, right? Rico versus Francis. Do a 3-fight series. Do one MMA, one kickboxing, one boxing. Do one boxing, meet in the middle, do something. That's the only fight that's interesting. Rico's done it all in Glory. No one's interested anymore in him in Glory, all that, right? Okay. So now, like, it doesn't really happen. We had him in International Fight Week. Remember, we had him in our casino studio, talked about it a little bit, but it didn't feel like it had a ton of momentum. God's honest truth. This, some way, somehow, got to Jason Statham. Jason Statham is a very good friend of Rico Verhoeven. Jason Statham is also a very good friend of Turki Al-Sheikh. Jason Statham pitched Turki Al-Sheikh Rico Verhoeven. Turki Al-Sheikh was not familiar with Rico Verhoeven. And he said, this is the guy, this is my boy. I think they were in a movie together. Was it Den of Thieves? So one of those movies. This is my guy. You should make this fight. Francis versus Rico. The timing wasn't good for Francis at that time. But they were committed to Rico. Rico gets out of the Glory contract. They have a chat with the UFC. The UFC offers him actually pretty good money, by the way. I know there were jokes about like 40 and 40, but what I was told was pretty good money to fight Derek Lewis on the first Paramount card. But obviously the money was greater to fight Anthony Joshua in February. Anthony takes the Jake Paul fight. That was the fight that he had afterwards. He beats Jake. They start saying maybe February is a little bit too soon, maybe March. Then, of course, the accident and everything, gets put to the side. But they still have this deal, and they still want to make right. They still want to do right. They still want to make a deal with Rico Verhoeven. And so they say, okay, what's the next best thing? Let's go to Oleksandr Usyk. And so that's how this whole thing got made. So in reality, we made the Rico Verhoeven versus Oleksandr Usyk fight. Thank you very much. But the point is, what I've seen over the last couple of days is that despite the fact that it's kickboxing, and I knew this, I think we all knew this, there is much more cohesion and unity between the MMA kickboxing world and as opposed to the boxing kickboxing world. Because I've been blown away by the disrespect that has been shown to Rico Verhoeven. Am I sitting here and saying he's going to beat Oleksandr Usyk? No, of course I'm not saying that. Oleksandr Usyk is arguably the best fighter pound for pound in the world, certainly the best heavyweight of this generation. He's one of the greatest all-time fighters. He's an Olympic medalist. He's a 2-division champion. His resume is unmatched. But they're talking about him like he's a total scrub. And not in the same way that they were talking about Francis. They spoke about Francis like he was not on Tyson's level. That's not the talk here. The talk here is, who is this guy? And where did he come from? Well, I just told you where he came from. But I put out a poll on Friday. Asking, which fight would you have been more interested in? Francis versus Rico or Rico versus Usyk? And I get that my base is probably more MMA centric, but I think that there would have been a much greater interest in a Francis-Rico MMA or boxing match than a Rico-Usyk boxing match. And not necessarily because of the skill discrepancy, because I don't think that there is a crossover between boxing and kickboxing. For whatever reason, MMA fans get excited about this sort of thing. I think they would have been very excited about Rico versus Francis. Boxing fans are very much like, leave us alone, the legitimacy of the sport, the sanctity of the belts. Look at the reaction to the WBC saying, no, in fact, we are going to sanction this and put our belt on the line. They lost their shit. I think this was a miscalculation. I think that they thought... I think that the powers that be who are putting on this fight, Sella, Ring, all these guys, great
Statham.
The fight should have been Francis versus Rico, in my opinion. And by the way, tomorrow we're going to have Rico Verhoeven on the show. And I'm not trying I am happy for Rico. I am so happy for Rico. It's about time he gets I'm just blown away by the disrespect, and it kind of like came to mind like, wow, it could have felt bigger over here. Does that make sense? Does anyone disagree with that?
Absolutely. No, it does. And as somebody who worked with Rico for a very long time when I was doing PR for Glory, like, to your point, he deserves this, right? He has carried the sport of kickboxing for quite a long time. He's the biggest star. His rivalry with Badr Hari was the only kind of crossover point when he was over there, and he had done everything. He deserves the shine, the notoriety, the payday. But to talk about what we were talking about when it comes to like Sean O'Malley and Conor Benn, right? If Rico Verhoeven, if we're talking about Conor Benn as being a local star, right, in the UK, Rico Verhoeven is very local to the Netherlands. He is only a star in the Netherlands and almost nowhere else. There are not a lot of Americans who know him. There are not a lot of Europeans who know him. Maybe like in the UK where kickboxing has some kind of fan base, but he is primarily a Dutch star. He is primarily somebody plucked out of the Netherlands. This feels like it can work from a Netflix perspective, right?
On Netflix.
I know, I'm just saying.
By the way, it would have been...
Feels like a Netflix one.
Yeah, it feels like a Netflix thing because Netflix, what they're very good at is they make movies that feature stars from different nationalities and different countries, and they find the audiences and things like that. It feels like a Netflix type thing, but it misses the mark everywhere else. I'm happy for Rico. He deserves this opportunity. I don't think it's going to be competitive, but I will say Francis kind of like reshaped everything I feel about squash matches. Like he's kind of shocked me into believing that anything is possible.
Rico versus Francis would have been so interesting to me, right?
It's more interesting.
MMA fans in general like that kind of stuff. Remember Horiguchi and Tenshin?
Yeah.
And Ryzen? Everybody was buzzing for it, and that was very region specific too.
Why are we more interested in this stuff? Why are we more open?
The sport is born in this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The sport is born out of the jiu-jitsu guy versus the boxer against the savate guy against... Yeah. That's what this whole sport is. So when these things happen for an MMA audience, it's nostalgia as well. It's like, they always
shame,
say
man. Rico versus Francis would have been so fun.
It's not off the table.
No,
it can still happen.
Yeah.
Not for nothing, some of our best MMA fighters are former kickboxers, right? Alex Pereira is about to fight John Jones in the White House. He is a glory kickboxer of the same ilk as Rico Verhoeven. I would argue Rico Verhoeven was a much better kickboxer than Alex Pereira was. But we know these guys because we have to know these guys because they come over and they are doing well in our sport. Israel Adesanya was a champion for a long, long time and was a fantastic kickboxer. In boxing, it doesn't have that lineage. There are some people who have crossed over. More often than not, it's from boxing into kickboxing, but there have been some that crossed over. But we need to know these people more because they tend to do well in MMA.
No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right.
Can I ask you,
Go ahead.
Ariel, this WBC question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so listen, Sella got involved with the UFC because they're like, we need to get rid of these belts.
Yeah.
Can't trust these three-letter organizations anymore. In a way, WBC making this for the undisputed title, it's playing into their hands to a certain degree. But
just for the WBC, by the way, so the WBO belt is going to be contested when Fabio Wardley fights, right? And that's coming up in just a few weeks' time. He is the owner of 3 belts, Oleksandr Usyk. The IBF, the WBA, and the WBC. IBF and WBA haven't said anything about this fight. WBC, who said that they wouldn't put their belt on the line when Fury fought Ngannou, Fury was the WBC champ, first said, we're not going to sanction this. We're going to make a special Egyptian title for this. And then they came back yesterday and said, no, in fact, we are going to sanction this. So just for the record, there's the statement. After careful consideration, the WBC Board of Governors has ruled in favor of sanctioning the WBC World Heavyweight Championship. Oleksandr Usyk's voluntary defense, so not a mandatory, of course, against legendary kickboxing champion Rico Verhoeven at its 63rd annual convention in Bangkok, Thailand. The WBC granted champion Usyk, that was late last year, a voluntary defense. Subsequently, the WBC received the petition to sanction the Usyk versus Verhoeven. They even misspelled his name. Golly, the disrespect.
That's a bullshit.
Oh my God, as a voluntary defense. Sorry for interrupting. So it's not for undisputed, it's for WBC.
WBC is on the line. And as we know, this was the war cry of Zuffa Boxing. Like, we're going to get rid of all these fucking belts. Turkey's involved with this promotion. Is he happy that the WBC are putting this belt on the line? Does it add to the promotion? I would say it probably does. So my question is, you have Frank Warren, who thought he was best pals with Turki Al-Sheikh. You have Eddie Hearn, who thought he was best pals with Turki Al-Sheikh. When is Dana not kind of going, well, something's going to happen here further down the line.
I don't think so. I don't think so. You know why? Because they're in the WWE business. They're very much embedded there. WrestleMania is coming to Saudi Arabia. I think the apple of their eye, of Turkey's eye, was always TKO. I think that's where he always wanted to be. And the Netflix stuff, like that, he recognizes them as being the preeminent combat sports promoters. They've got MMA, they've got boxing. So I don't think he's going to do any of that to them. And I think this is consistent. To be fair to him, he has not said anything about the WBC. He even had this WBC World Grand Prix thing at the end of the year last year. It's the other guys, namely Dana White, who have said things about the three letters. Nick Khan has said it a little bit. Mark Shapiro said it a little bit, but it was mainly Dana White over the last few months. But this is consistent. Don't say anything, and then strike when need be, i.e. the Queensberry situation, the Matchroom situation. What I think is interesting about this is, number one, as you said, like, all right, you say that you don't want to have WBC, but here you are putting it on as a WBC title fight, and I think that lends credibility to it. I think it's more interesting that the WBC is okay with it. And so what's changed in the last 3 years? What's changed is they see their power slipping. They see their influence on the sport slipping. I think if this was 4 years ago, they would have said, no way. We're not going to sanction this. We're not going to put our belt on the line. You know how I know that? Because they said it when Francis fought Tyson Fury. And so what's the difference? The difference is they don't want to upset the apple cart now. They don't want to say no to the Saudis. So they're saying, okay, that's the difference. They are seeing their grip on this sport, slowly fade away. I also think it's hilarious. Shout out to the Inside Boxing guys, new members of our team, but I vehemently disagree with their stance on the WBC belt being online here. They're calling it a joke. Manny Pacquiao was out of fighting for like 6 years and fought for the WBC belt. And I'm not saying you didn't have an issue with that, but let's not pretend like the WBC is this bastion of legitimacy. Ryan Garcia just fought for the WBC title against the same guy, Mario Barrios, coming off a loss, a listless performance, and a drug infraction. What? Now you can say, oh, he has more fights on his resume than... Come on, man. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, let's stop pretending like there's actual order in these rankings and that all of this makes that much sense. It doesn't make sense.
But if Rico Verhoeven goes in and beats Usyk in a boxing match, who gives, like...
He's also... That makes him the WBC
That makes him the champ. Who gives a shit? It doesn't even make any sense.
Of course. I think it's crazier to advocate for this to be a non-title fight.
Yes, I agree.
Like, what is this? Saturday Morning Pro Wrestling where it's a non-title match and Hulk Hogan's going up against some jabroni? No. Oleksandr Usyk owns 3 belts. If he loses that fight, that guy should own those 3 belts.
That's absolutely right. By the way, Pete, the other big difference is Sella's 60% ownership in the Zuffa Boxing as opposed to the partnerships with Warren and with Matchroom and Queensberry. They were just kind of, getting intel, partnering, everybody's chummy. Now they have their own money in the game and ownership in the stake. So I find it unlikely they'd like double cross themselves, but maybe the long term is to buy out, the TKO group down the line. But they all seem very happy at the moment.
By the way, I'm happy for Usyk as well. Like, this guy has done everything right. He's fought everyone. He's had to fight them twice. Like, he's done everything. He deserves that fun fight. I have no problem with him getting that fight. I think the poster is badass as well. I'm not going to lie. I think it's awesome.
It's incredible.
It's kind of surreal.
The fact that it made it like... It looks like the fighters as well. Whoever did the artwork for it killed it.
No, it's brilliant. The location is brilliant. Like, I don't know what all of this is going to cost them as far as putting it on there and all that stuff. It's wild. I don't know why it's even happening in Egypt, to be honest.
What's it going to look like? Is it going to be closer to the Times Square, or is it going to be like
That's what I'm thinking.
God, I hope not.
Backdrop of the pyramids as they're fighting?
I certainly hope that. But it is weird. None of them have ties to Egypt. So, like, why is it happening in Egypt? But that's fine. It doesn't matter. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Rico. I think it's unfortunate, just to be honest. Like, I wish it was on Netflix because no one's going to watch it on DAZN pay-per-view. Who's watching that? Or on their Fight Pass thingy that they have. It's like, it's where fights go to die, it feels like. And so this fight feels like a mega event. It feels like a Netflix type of event where it's like, oh, wow, this is a crossing of 2 worlds. But it's just amazing. Like, if you ever had any doubt that boxing fans just kind of live here and don't care about anything else, we kind of knew about that. Like, we tend to give boxing so much more respect than boxing gives MMA. And we give, I think, kickboxing and bare knuckle and jiu-jitsu and all these other things, grappling, so much more respect. Like to them, it's just like, oh, leave us alone. This is our thing, and PT nailed it. It's because our sport was born out of this wackiness. Just the disrespect shown to this guy over the last few days has been appalling. Absolutely appalling.
Is there not something
dollars to dry his tears with, though?
No, I know.
Is there not something to take away from this if you are the people putting on this fight, which is people didn't really want this? Our core fan base did not really want this fight.
That's the other point. That's why I put out that poll.
Like, I'd be reading the room here a little bit in terms of, man, did we fuck this up? Do we need to change course here? If the outcry is basically who's watching this, I don't know if that's the place you want to be.
I mean, in Giza, with the purses that they're going to have to pay on DAZN pay-per-view, I just
this feels
can't
like
imagine this is going to be very profitable for them.
This is a very expensive favorite of Jason Statham.
And that's the best part about this whole thing. My brother in Bald getting this done. Yeah. Man. The best promoter in all of boxing, Jason Statham.
Yo, Rico owes that guy. I hope Jason walks him out. I hope he gives him a little what a wingman, right?
I hope they film a scene. Yeah, I hope they film a scene for his next movie at this thing.
I just watched Shelter with Jason Statham. Great movie.
That's probably why it's in Giza. This is probably going to be.
That was his choice?
Yeah, this is probably going to be part of his next action movie.
Jason, where would you like this fight to take place? I don't know. What about the pyramids?
Yeah.
Done.
He was calling somebody a geezer, and they thought he said Giza, and then they put it.
Exactly. I'll watch the geezer fight anyway.
Were they in a
Giza?
Were they in a movie together? They were in something, right?
No, I think they're just friends.
All right.
Turkey and Jason?
Jason Statham's not in Den of Thieves. This is pitiful by you guys, by the way. You should know your action movies.
He's in the greatest shark movie of all time, Meg and Meg 2.
Jason Statham is a huge kickboxing fan.
Oh,
like
is that
huge.
it? Okay.
He used to come to. He came to the New York early on Glory shows.
Of his.
He is a massive kickboxing fan. He's a huge fan of combat sports. And he just knew Rico. He knew Ball. Listen, Jason Statham knows Ball.
Is Turkey just a huge fan of Jason Statham?
Yes.
I love it.
So.
For whatever reason.
Crank.
What? What do you mean forever? Well, whatever reason.
No, I'm just saying, like, they seem to be very cozy. Like, they're sitting together.
It's Jason fucking Statham.
All right,
I'd be his best friend, too, if I gave you the opportunity.
Isn't it cool that wild shit still happens? Like, because we are so used to monotony, and, you know, we have the White House this year we're looking forward to. But, like, it got to a stage where every event, no matter where the UFC were in the world, we just were like, this is very similar. It doesn't feel like they're marking their kind of their status in this new location. They're doing a fucking boxing match beside the Great Pyramids.
Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.